All right, this is show number 113 coming to you on a special night, Wednesday. And I got, because of special night, I asked a special guest to come back with very short notice. I asked Andy, I think last night, would you mind coming on tonight? And Andy responded, Andy Bloxham responded right away and said, absolutely, I'd love to come on. And he's going to walk us through, or we're going to discuss rule of thirds. That was the contest challenge theme or the challenge theme for last month, April. And we're going to go through the images, the finalists, the 5 finalist images. Andy's going to talk in general about some of the rule of thirds and how they worked and didn't work or something like that with each 5. And then at the end, we'll announce a winner. It's probably be a little bit shorter show than usual. Andy coming in at a special time, and it's being a special night, I wanted to not have our generally lengthy show, but I don't want to hold Andy back. If he wants to talk, he can talk as long as he wants. Also, before we get into the final images, want to thank our judges this time, because if you remember, we've changed the rules where the winner from the prior month also gets the vote in the finals, unless their image is in the finals. And Matt Woodhouse, for the 3rd month in a row, had an image in the finals, so he didn't get the vote. But also, we had Gina, Parry, and Nikki. I don't know if I've ever said Nikki's last name. So this is a new opportunity for me to mess it up. Tim, why don't you say it first, and then I'll try and repeat what you say.
Nikki Nisly.
Nikki Nisly. Nikki and Gina are both admins, and I said it really fast, so if I messed up, you wouldn't know. Nikki and Gina are both admins, and when their images made it into the final, that means they couldn't vote either. So we had 3 slots open. 3. Let's see. There you go. 3 slots open for somebody to be a judge. And I asked Scott Green, who's been on the show before, Daniel Torden. He was on the show, street photographer from England. He was a judge, and we had a new person, Banaka Hubble. Is that how you say her name, Tim?
Yeah, that's how I would say it.
Yeah, Banaka Hubble. She was on the show. I mean, she was not on the show, but she was a guest judge too. Did great. All of our new people did great judging, and filled out the form and had some good comments. All that stuff, really good, and we appreciate all that they did to help us out. With that said, I want to turn it over to Andy. And Andy, won't you tell us basically what is the rule of thirds? What should we be shooting for? What should we be doing?
So the idea is, if you take a square rectangle shape and you're creating 4 lines on the image, and so 100 divided by 3, because we're dealing with thirds, is 33%. And so kind of like when you're in Photoshop and you have like the ruler tool, you're dragging from the top of the image and dragging that line down 33% from the top, and then dragging a line up from the bottom 33%. From the left, 33%, from the right, 33%, and you're creating 4 intersections in your image, like in the upper left, upper right, lower right. And the idea is where those lines intersect becomes like the main points of focus, like the strongest places for your content. If things are like running with the lines that you're creating, those are just kind of like where we instinctively look in an image. Now, this isn't like the surefire thing that's always going to create masterpieces. You can break the rules too. But it's a pretty good place to start for at least like the design of your photographs.
Is it sort of like creating a tic-tac-toe? I don't know if you can see what I have up, but I found a few web pages with some stuff, and I can put them in the show notes. But sort of like creating a tic-tac-toe diagram on the image. Yeah,
I mean that's exactly. So we see like with the blue image, like those 4 little points that are circled. These are kind of like, just the intersections. And so we see the image beneath where the bird is, it's right where that right side and top line are coming together. And so we're instinctively always already looking at that part of the frame. And so if you put your content there, it just helps kind of reinforce like the strength of your image, rather than like right in the middle, like a bullseye or something like that.
Okay. All right, and why is that more pleasing than just center frame?
I don't know the exact, there's a few different, design approaches. Like there's I don't even know the name of it, but it's this weird little curve shape that also comes into play. I have a theory that maybe it's because our eyes are on the left and right side, so therefore we're looking at the left and right side of a frame. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But just, we're just innately drawn to those parts of a photograph.
Okay. And
So-
in that example, and I'll pull it up again here, it has a bird in an image right below the little diagram of tic-tac-toe. It has a bird that is hitting one of those dots. Is that what you're talking about? One of the cross sections?
Yep, that's it right there.
Okay.
And we end up, with like 9 equally sized segments in the frame, but it's not so much the segments as it is the actual lines themselves and where those points come together.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a good starting place for, with composition. Like a lot of times people just pick up the camera and they just photograph something in front of them, and this starts to begin like a way of thinking about the structure of the image.
One thing I just looked up as we were talking is on Wikipedia, they talk about it. The first written documentation for rule of thirds was in 1797. That I would never have known. And it was something quoted from 1783. Wow. Never would have guessed that.
Wow. So it's been around for a while. That's a rule that's been around for a while. And I found another example here on the web too, of where you have the kayaker or whatever. He doesn't look like he's on a river, more of the ocean or something. But he's hitting one of those lines. And then, of course, below it talks about when to break the rule. So, like most rules in photography, it's good to learn them before you start breaking them, because then you understand more what you're doing. But, and also, like most rules, it's not a hard rule where you always have to do that.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I really think when you look at it, especially like the top picture there with the kayaker, it shows the background. It shows what he's going toward. So it adds more interest to the photograph. If you just had him in the middle of the picture, it wouldn't look as good. But now the second picture there, you got the two people, and they're almost on the opposing rule of thirds. I mean, not opposing points, I should say, of the upper level. So it still kind of falls in it, even though you're kind of centering the people. The main subject is centered in there. And I think if you put one of them off to the side, it would look funny. So yeah, it's not a hard rule. It's a guide.
That's a good point, Tim.
Creating negative and positive space, like just kind of contrasting your subject versus like this bit, like you were saying, like the background. It's just kind of like a good structure for everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know that you want, if you have a person who is looking to the left, and you want them off to the right side of the image, and vice versa, so they're looking toward the negative space. But what have you seen as like the most common mistake people made when it comes to rule of thirds?
I don't know if there's any like common mistakes I see people make. Sometimes they just get it, or maybe they're doing it and they don't even realize what they're doing. They just have this instinctual eye for how to compose it. The biggest mistake that I see is people tend to ignore like the edges of a photograph, and so like they'll have their subject right in the middle, and there's all this stuff happening on the edge, and as a photographer you're responsible for like all of those edges as well. And so some people just tend to like their mind, they don't even see like the rest of that photograph. And so this is a way to kind of help them start to see all those edges and how, if they're important and relevant and things like that. The thing I was referring to earlier was the Fibonacci spiral. That's
Fibonacci spiral. I've heard of that too. There's a number, we talk about the rule of thirds, but there's a number of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never spell that. Oh, hey. I only had to type in FIB, and then Google did the rest for me.
Yeah.
So I'll look at find a web page where I can Wikipedia, but it doesn't have very good. It has a crazy long formula or something. I did a number.
Yeah.
Also known as maybe the golden spiral. Is that another name for it? Or is that something different?
That sounds right.
Nah, that doesn't look right. It was like another math formula. So I might not have done the right thing. Anyway, let's keep going.
Sequence. Yeah, I think I heard of that in wasn't that in like Angels and Demons or something with Fibonacci?
The Da Vinci Code or
Da Vinci
stuff.
Code. It seems like I seem to remember that from something like that.
Yeah, yeah, I remember it. It's something you find in nature. It's like a sequence or a pattern. So yeah.
Okay. Well, as I try and find it. Oh, here we go. I found it. I got something for us. Let me pull up the web page. And there. So this is the spiral.
Yep.
And it looks like it works really well with the guy there. Right above it is the horse with the regular rule of thirds. And then there's a spiral of the guy. Wow,
Yeah.
that looks very complex. I don't know if I could ever intentionally do that. I may get that one by accident.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think, I mean, you can have like the rule of thirds, you can have the spiral as like overlays in the viewfinder in your camera, or like on the back of your LCD. And so when you're actually setting up your shot, you can actually set it up with those intersecting lines already there as a grid for you. And so you don't have to kind of just, ballpark if that'll be there or not. You can actually literally have it in place.
Well, you can get the spiral too. I think I've done the rule of thirds on it before, but I don't remember doing the spiral.
I've seen the spiral on some people's computers. Now they might have, or their camera, but they might have their camera hacked. I'm not really sure.
Man, that would be awesome. Well, I don't have time to go through my menu as we're doing a live show, so I'll mess up more stuff. But I'll have to look at that as soon as we're done. That would be awesome to have that one in there. I know I've got the rule of thirds one in there. I think I did in this one. But okay, so how about now we look at some practical stuff and we look at how the images, the 5 that were entered and made it to the finals, how they met the rule of thirds, or where they missed, or how they could have improved to hit the rule of thirds. And then as we go through them, then Tim, how about we also add the comments that the judges said about these images? And Andy does not know which one won. I asked him before if he wanted to know. Tim and I know. He didn't want to know. So you're not going to actually pick a winner. That way I don't want us to look stupid.
Fine.
You just make comments on each one. So first one up is Mindy. You say last names, Tim.
Vassalle.
Mindy Vassalle with the Fireball amusement park ride. And it looks like one of those ones that goes back and forth, not necessarily a roller coaster, but back and forth.
Yeah, I was thinking, is this a roller coaster or not? I was like, can't be, because how did she get into this position to get the picture? So it's like, it's got to be something that's closer to the ground. I agree. Yeah.
But to me, this one, and maybe we can go in the front end and say what we think, what the comments were, and then Andy can come in from behind. I personally, Tim, this was one of my favorite ones. I liked it, the emotion in this one. The wire that's there that you can see in the sort of middle bottom frame, I wish that would have been cloned out. That would have been better. And maybe a little, if I could see a little bit more of the bottom of their legs also, that would have been there. I am drawing a little bit too much to the word fireball in this one. So I know that it was a challenge to get the photo in the first place, but with all that said, this one to me of all of them had the most emotion. There's some other issues with it that I knocked a few points off, but it had the most emotion of all the ones entered. So I really liked this one.
Well, I liked it, and I thought the rule of thirds worked well. The only thing I think that really was distracting to me was there is so much to the right side of the picture there wasn't a lot there to tell. Not like you had, let's say, we had that picture before of the kayaker with the horizon and the backyard between the water and the land. Here it's just an open sky, and this to me was just kind of missing something. Yeah, the emotion was strong in this picture, no doubt about that. But I think it just kind of was lacking something, and I can't say exactly what it was. I mean, it's a great technical shot to get it. Great placement. Right, you got the fireball written right there, but something about it just didn't make it my favorite. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right, Andy.
So Henry Cartier-Bresson, do you guys know his work?
No.
It's couldn't say I do.
He had the phrase called the decisive moment, where a lot of people think it's like where the action all happens at once, but he's also referring to when the design of the frame comes together at this perfect moment where, like he's got a photograph of these stairs, and there's this biker happening at the top, and the actual design of everything is coming together perfectly. Not so much that the biker's passing by. So you have
it's not the final result. It's right, almost the moment right before that.
Right, but it's almost about like the structure as well. So like when we were talking about how it would be really easy to bullseye this, put this right in the very center. Like the temptation is there because you're just trying to capture the moment. But Mindy has done a good job of thinking about the structure of the photograph too. And so when we see, like the emotion, there's like genuine emotion from the girl on the right. She's terrified, and so that's one of the great things. I think what you guys are referring to, for me, it's almost like the values are inverted from what they should be, because we've got all this brightness on the left-hand side, and this isn't the rule of thirds, but it's also another form of structure for the image. We've got the bright sky on the right, we've got the flames coming up on the left-hand side, and they're like twice as bright as the girl's face in the bottom. The person's arm with the pink tag is super bright, like the sun's hitting like that skin. And so the rule of thirds is pulling us into like this emotion, and like the actual moment that's captured is pulling us in. But then the ratio of darks to lights is also pulling us back away, and it's having us become sidetracked by these bright areas, the reflection off the metal bar. And so for me, that's what's taken me away, is how relatively dark like the kids are on the bottom compared to the rest of the scene. But as far as placement, like Mindy's done a really good job of really honing in like the spot in the frame for these two kids.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
you always give much better critiques than we do.
Yes, boy, that was much more eloquent.
That's why we go. That's why we go first. Okay.
Yeah.
Because after you would finish, we'd just be what he said.
Ditto.
Yeah. So all right, let's go to the next one, and this one is Charles Herrell. Herrell. How do you say that, Tim? Am I right?
Herrell. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
And this one is for our audio listeners. This one it looks like a sunset or sunrise, maybe over a lake, with the shoreline starting in the lower right-hand corner and then working its way along the left-hand corner and coming up around the top. So some of the comments on this one, and I'll start with my comments, is, I love the water, I love the sky. There's a lot of distraction for me that is on the shoreline. I don't know how he could have dealt with that, because it's there. Maybe make it a little bit darker on the shoreline, something like that. The fact that it starts in the lower right-hand corner and it moves up along, it does draw my eye at least to the sunrise. So I have multiple things drawing me there. Just the fact that the sunrise is almost center frame. I'm going to call it sunrise because I don't know which one it is. So I like the colors, and I like the fog on the water too.
Well, I think I agree with you. I think that was exactly some of my comments. It drew you from the lower right up to the left and then across the top. And I think this is a sunrise because you don't usually get the fog like this in the evening. This is something you get in the morning right point. Before the sun burns it off. So I love this picture. I thought it really has a lot of emotion. Without the fog, I don't know if it would have, or the low-lying fog. And I think of a place where I drove past all the time at work, and I always I had a camera with me trying to capture a picture, and it was never there. And the few times that I didn't have the times that I didn't always have my camera, sure enough, that's when the fog would be there. And it wasn't always there. It was like maybe 4 days out of the year I would have seen it there. And it's one of those things where I'd love to have captured it and never caught it. So this is a hard thing to catch. The weather's got to be just perfect for it. And then that fog burns off real quick from the water surface. So yeah, it's something you got to be almost waiting for. And I really like this picture. I thought the emotion was strong in it. The start of a new day is the way I was looking at it.
Mm. You've got to also wake up for that too, which is the most terrifying part to me.
So before we go to Andy, some of the other comments by some of the other reviewers was really wish I could be there. Looks, let's see, because the background is I wish I was there. Really wish there was a little more detail in the foreground because the foreground is interesting. So maybe he's saying the opposite of what I was saying. The horizon is a bit slant. Didn't want to mention. Okay. The sky and reflection of water are lovely. So just a few other comments from some of the other people. Everybody loved this image, and had a lot of good positive things to say about it. So not everybody agreed with me that the shoreline was a little distracting. All right, Andy.
So if we look at it like by the rule of thirds, we've got like the horizon line is basically running the very top line that you would have, like the bottom and top line. So for me, I actually kind of run along that horizon from the right side, and I start moving to the left. And as I'm moving to the left, I'm trying to find in my mind where that left-hand vertical line would be coming up and where the intersection would happen at. And there's like a log or something in the upper left corner, like right in the water.
Yep.
And that's pretty. It's maybe a little further to the left than where the actual junction might be, but that's like the clearest usage of the rule of thirds for me in this photograph. The question I would have is, because we're using like this kind of like innate design for an image. When we place things there, like we're saying this is important, and I don't know what's important about that log, because we've got contrast, we've got dark on light happening, we've got the rule of thirds coming together at it, and so for me, I'm just not personally drawn into what that spot is, although it's become super important because of how it's kind of like being set up to viewed. There's something coming in from the top, very top left, like a little branch or something, which kind of gets into that idea again, what I was saying earlier about like being responsible for like every part of the frame. Is that something that's super critical, or is that something that can be avoided or cloned out? Anything like that.
Which brings me to you just mentioned something I was going to ask. So you come across a scene. It's a beautiful scene. I'm sure when you're in person, you look at it. But maybe the scene itself doesn't lend itself to fit everything into the rule of thirds the way you want, or there's junk in the way, and you move to the best spot you can get to. Do you just deal with it then in post and you clone out what's in your way, or what do you suggest, or hey, maybe you just get the best you can get?
I think it depends on like your position in regards to stuff like that. Some people don't want to clone things out because they feel then it's not the reality of what was in front of them. Some people, I'm more of the camp that believes that no photograph is really reality. It's an interpretation of reality. So we're still using the camera to approximate what's in front of us. And so, I mean, maybe you could take a ladder and break that twig off, and then when you photograph it, it's not there. But if you break it off physically or break it off with a computer, like how does that change the scene, or like the morals of the photographer, maybe. So yes, it's personal. Like if you were a photojournalist and you clone that out, you would instantly be discredited because of doing that.
But all the rest of us can do whatever we want.
Right.
Oh, wait, so, if you broke it off and you're a photojournalist, you're still okay?
Yeah, because you're not changing things after the fact.
Okay.
I mean, there was a photograph that was submitted to some photojournalism contest where somebody cloned out a trash bag. Like it was this very like serene nature scene, but there was just like a white plastic bag off in the corner, and they cloned it out, and it got them. I don't know if it was for a contest and they got disqualified or what it was, but it became like a big deal. But I mean, every year photojournalists have like some huge debacle.
Yeah.
With this whole process.
I think we've all heard of somebody getting in trouble with that. All right, the next one is from Matt Woodhouse, and this is Matt's third time being in the finals, and he actually won the last 2 months. So Matt's third time being in the finals. This one I think is our only black and white entry, and it has a little bit of HDR feel to me. I don't know if he did a combo of multiple images or just the way he processed it. So, Tim, you want to go first while I look up the notes?
I mean, I thought this definitely had a lot of an HDR feel. I definitely hit the rule of thirds on this with the foreground with the, I'm guessing that was a gravestone on the left. What I really liked about the picture was the level of detail. I mean, the grass blades in this, it really, you think it had to be no wind for this because Now, otherwise, the grass blades would have been moving. It definitely had the HDR feel to me. It was a great shot, in my opinion. I thought it hit all the rule of thirds. It has the emotion, but I don't know if it has a strong emotion that I got attached to the picture. I did like it, but it didn't strike me as my favorite picture.
Yeah, I think that with HDR, or and I say HDR, I don't know if this was. It could have been one image that he processed this way, but some people like it, some people don't like it. So one person said it seems over processed. Because I like HDR, and I felt that this one was well processed as an HDR image, or just in general well processed. I liked it. I liked the positioning of the close up, what do you call it, tombstone, and then the sky too. So this was an image that I definitely picked to make it into the finals. I really like this image. Very nice black and white, wonderfully moody sky, good foreground interest. Feel there is not enough contrast distinction between the three objects in the background, was some of the comments from some of the other judges. All right, Andy.
The rule of thirds, like where it comes through the strongest in this image, is the tombstone kind of coming off at an angle on the upper right hand side.
Upper right hand side. Okay.
Yeah, it's there's like a cross coming off the top of it, which is pretty close to that little right intersection that would be happening there. So for me, I'm like pulled back, into that space, and so it hits the nail right there. There was a comment about contrast, and that's there is contrast. There's a lot of contrast in this image, but it's a very micro level of contrast. It's not a very broad thing. I mean, sharpness is contrast. And so there is a lot of that, like everything is in pristine detail, but as far as like a more general, like global contrast, it's a little lacking in regards to like this foreground tombstone. If we look right beneath the letters, it's almost the same value as the sky, so things get a little lost because it's so processed that it basically processed all the deep shadows out of the image, and so we end up with a pretty middle grayish image with some peaking in the shadows and peaking in the highlights, but for the most part it's all right about in the middle. It's just a really sharp version of that. I don't know if it's HDR or if it's just a lot of fill lights and Lightroom / Adobe Camera Raw processing type stuff. One thing you got to watch out for when you do that stuff though is the halos that start coming into play.
Right.
I don't see them that much in the background, and especially like the tombstone I'm referring to, but it's also that would be up against kind of like a light sky anyway. But this foreground one, there's like a little white glow all the way around it, and it's a very faint line, but I don't know if you guys can see that as well, but that's kind of like one of the things you got to watch out for. I mean, some people do it, and they're totally fine with that in their image. I see it, and it's just kind of like becomes like a telltale stamp of that HDR-ish type processing.
And I know what you're talking about, because when I was first doing HDRs, mine wasn't so slight.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of trouble where like tree lines met the sky. And I'd have a clear white thing there. Like, it took me a while to figure out how to manipulate the HDR and work with the HDR to keep that under control. So it's something that is easy to mess up. And I'm looking at Matt's here, and in the small version I'm looking at, it's very, very, very faint, if I'm even seeing it right. So not nearly as pronounced as what I was doing when I first started shooting HDR. Again, I don't know if this is HDR, though.
Yeah, I mean, HDR, like, proper was like 3 to 5 to 7 or 9 images of different exposure, but you can also kind of fake it by reprocessing your raw file, 3 or 4 times. But I mean, essentially what creates that little halo is HDR is adding lots of contrast, in a very, detail oriented way. And so when you're talking about like trees and leaves and stuff like that, they're more in the shade, but your sky tends to be a little brighter. And so it's adding contrast where there's already a ton of contrast. And so it's just ramping up that effect, exponentially. And so that's why you get that stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting image. I'd just like to see the place.
Well, I believe he lives over in Ireland or somewhere like that. So that'd be a nice trip to take. Maybe he'll put you up somewhere.
Yeah. I've been to Ireland before, like, and it's just like no matter where you turn, there's just like perfect, photographs everywhere.
It's one of the places I would love to visit. That whole area over there, I'd love to visit that someday. All right, our next image is from someone closer to there than I am. Gina Parry, who's one of the admins, and so she couldn't vote this time. She took this image of a cat. I'm not sure if it's her cat, and she is in England, somewhere in England, not sure where. But let me look at some of the comments there. Well, let me tell you my comment. So I'll tell you my comment first, then you can go, Tim. So just the sharpness in the eye, to me, when I look at that, I go straight to the eyes of the cat. I mean, they're so bright and inviting. I am a little bit distracted by the flowers. The brightness of the flowers, that's the second place I go. But the cat's head, the way I'm looking at it, is pretty close to that connection on the upper left, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's my comments.
Well, and I think I agree completely with that. The eyes drew me in, and I think what really made this picture for me was the depth of field where the flowers, in this case, were blurred out. Yeah, maybe the white flowers are a little bit bright, and maybe they should have been brought down a little bit. But the fact that the cat's eyes were so in sharp, it drew you to it. And like you said, it's in the upper left-hand corner for the rule of thirds. The flowers are along the lower entire line for the lower thirds. So I actually really like this picture. The fact that the flowers were there, I didn't think it was distracting. I thought it added something. If the cat was there by itself, it probably wouldn't have been as powerful of a picture.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yep. So some of the comments, I don't need to read Tim because he just said it. So, as far as emotion goes, I think that's going to come down to whether you're a cat lover or not. So I'm going to kind of leave that one out because we do have some people who are indifferent, some people who are cat lovers, and then you assign yourself to that cat. But love the deep blacks and the shallow depth of field, like Tim had mentioned before. Also, the sharp focus on the eyes combined with the light really work together to make this a compelling image. Was one of the comments. A beautiful image with rich colors and lovely use of bokeh was one of the other comments. And there's a number of other comments, but I'm going to turn it over to Andy now.
When I was looking at Charles's photograph with the kind of like the horizon line, the landscape,
yeah,
I was talking about how where that left-hand vertical line and the top horizontal line came together, like created like a natural focus point. But it was like a log, and I was just curious what was so important about the log because of how my eye was just drawn there. Here, I mean, the cat's positioned perfectly in the same spot in the frame as in that image, but we're also there's the aspect of that is the focus point, that's the content, like the cat. It's also where the eyes are. So I tend to think that when we're looking at photographs, eyes pull us in, whether it's a human eye or an animal eye or a cat eye or a dog eye or a fish eye, whatever. So it becomes like something that we're just kind of like naturally just drawn to try to find. So everything's being reinforced right there. Like they're like the flowers in the foreground. They are, they're a little bright, so we're a little bit of competition, but they're not sharp. So they lack that contrast. They kind of pull us down too much. I kind of feel like the leaves maybe are a little too high in a way, like it's almost obscuring the cat's face, but maybe in a slightly negative way. But otherwise, yeah, we're kind of pulled in. It's interesting though seeing this cat because we don't have any other contexts for it, and so it almost becomes like the Cheshire cat, I think, where it's just kind of like floating in the photograph because I don't see the rest of its body or anything. So I don't know. Like I assume the rest of its body is there, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't
like
think
that,
it's a dead cat.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just kind of interesting seeing how like the complete rest of the cat's completely obscured. So yeah.
Okay.
I think follows the rule very well though.
All right, and then our last image is by, and I think Tim, did we get her last name wrong, Nikki?
Yes, we did.
All right.
It is Nikki Nisly.
Nikki Nisly.
Nice.
And I talk to Nikki quite often, and I can't believe I don't know her last name. But how often do I use it?
It wouldn't have mattered if you knew her last name.
No, because you can tell me right before the show starts, and I can go Nisly, and then as soon as the show starts, I say Nisly. As soon as the show, yeah. So, all right. So this is our last of the 5 images that were entered, and Tim, why don't you comment about hers while I'm looking up the.
Yeah, let me find my notes on it.
Oh, sorry.
I like this picture. I think this is almost right along the lines with the cat, where you had the upper left quadrant, you had the flower. Might have almost preferred if it was opening just a little bit, but obviously you can't coax a flower to open. It's petals on this. But then you have the flower draws you down with the line, right down that left side line of, let's say, the tic-tac-toe, and then the leaf goes right across the right side. So I really liked it. I think the only issue for me on this one was it might have been a little softer than I would have liked. It could have been maybe something a little bit more sharper on the picture.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, it really, for the rule of thirds, just really hit all the elements for me.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the comments that's a good review, Tim. One of the comments from one of the judges, as much as I like this, and you think that he's going to go negative here, or she, as much as I like this, I love how the contrast helps give a subtle feel. It's actually a little too low contrast for my taste. That's the only gripe about it. I absolutely love this photo was the rest of the comment. For me, some of the same things you said, Tim. And then as I looked at it more, it almost has a sensual feel to it also, with the flower and that's waiting there to be opened up.
Well, see, I mean, I really like the background is completely blurred out.
Mm-hmm.
You other than the fact that it's a flower and it's probably the ground behind it, you wouldn't know what it was. It could have been like outer space for all you know. I mean, the background is perfect to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Andy.
What Tim was saying about how, like, where the flower, the petals are, it's hitting like that perfect upper left corner, and you create like this little L shape. It comes down right to where the bottom line hits the left vertical line, and then just starts running along that bottom space. So it's geometrically, it's falling perfectly in line with like the structure. It's interesting because this follows the image of the cat, and so they're both structured very, very similarly. But yeah, we have two radically different images. The contrast is super washed out. So it's like we know where the focus is and we know what's out of focus, but the shadows have a lot of brightness added into it. So therefore, it becomes, I don't know if that's something correct or incorrect, but it becomes like an aesthetic decision to make. And so you could just as easily make this with your shadows actually being a black point, and you'd have a completely different image. But would it be something that Nikki would be drawn to? Personal call at that point. It's interesting seeing this in comparison to Matt's, because Matt's is like super contrasty and like micro contrast everywhere, and then we have Nikki's, and it's just like almost the absence of contrast except for where like the focus is. I don't think either one of them are right or wrong. It just comes down to like artistic preference at that point. But I think as far as the rule of thirds, this one, like, really, the length of that flower petal is almost 33% of the height of the image. And so that kind of digs into what the fundamentals of rule of thirds is. So
yeah, we had some very good entries this month. They really did a good job of following the rule of thirds. And Tim's getting ready for the I guess for the drum roll here. And so I think we had, and especially in these 5, we had some other really good ones. Some of the ones that I liked that didn't make it into the finals, but we had some good entries in the 5 here. And as Andy went through them, they did a really good job of hitting that theme and just in general. So it made the job of picking a winner tough. And I get the little spreadsheet. Gina and Nikki have seen the way this works. 5 categories going from technical, which is like the focus, the white balance, that kind of stuff, the use of the theme, the emotion of the image, the composition, and an overall. and you add them up, and then this time we had 6. Yeah, we had 6 judges because we lost the 3, like I mentioned in the first part, with Gina, Nikki, and Matt couldn't vote. So we ended up bringing in Banaka, Scott, and Daniel. And if I said any of your names wrong, sorry. And to round out Tim, Sess, and I. And all of us voted, and I was watching the votes as they came in, and we were down to one person, and when we had one person left to vote, going into that last person left to vote, it was a tie for the winner between 2 of them. I won't tell you who ended up second place, because I never want to let people know what the placement was of the others. But again, you made it into the top 5. But we had a tie for first place, and with all the numbers, the way we do this, I can't imagine I didn't think we'd ever have a tie. And we ended up with the tie there. No. So, but fortunately, the 6th person who came in and voted did break the tie, not by much, but they did break the tie. And I guess at that time, if we still had a tie, we'd probably count how many categories, of the 5 categories, how many did you win versus the other person. That would be the tiebreaker in that sense. And if that was a tie, I don't know what we'd do. But we did have we did have a winner, somebody who pulled through, who won. And in this case, actually won more categories than anybody else. So they would have won in a tiebreaker too. And that person is Gina Parry with a cat photo. Congratulations, Gina. This is not Gina's first time winning. She's won before. She knows what she's doing. She takes some great photos. I am more partial to her dog photos. She posts some amazing dog photos that I love dogs, and she posts those too. This cat one is excellent too. Even if I'm not a cat lover, this is one of my favorite photos of the group. So congratulations, Gina.
Nice.
Tim?
No, I agree. I was very pleased at this one. I think I know this is one of the ones that I had voted for initially to make it into the final. So I was glad to see this that Gina won.
Yep. Congratulations. And Nikki said it was a hard month. Yes, it was a hard month for us. I had to get 3 guest judges because our admins, and the way we work it, if an admin makes it into the final, then that means that there'll be a 4th person. An admin never takes the place of a non-admin. So as Gina and Nikki made it in, that's why we have 5 this month rather than 3 in the finals.
Cool. What's the next theme?
The next theme is emotion, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Emotion. And I have, what I need to do is make sure that the person picking the list has seen what we've picked in the past, because I do have a list that has all the previous themes, has who the winner was and who the finalists were, and I posted that in a Facebook group, and have it also now posted, Tim, in the forums, so you can go over there and see them there. So we're doing emotion. We have done that one, but it's been a long time ago that we did emotion again. We did emotion before, so doesn't mean we can't hit the same theme again because we have new people doing this. But for May, the theme is emotion. And we've already got a number of great entries in that one.
Fantastic. And
Andy, you are a member of the Facebook group, so I don't know how often you actually get a chance to look in there, but you can see we do pin it to the top of the Facebook group. So if you're somebody who wants to just look at them, okay. Not just you, but anybody, if you want to look at them, feel free, at the top of the Facebook group, the first post, it should be pinned to the top. You can go in there and look at what people have entered, like any ones you want. There's no longer any restrictions on liking them like we had before because the likes were counted into the voting. Now there's no restrictions like that, so like them or make comments, whatever you want to do. And if you're somebody who wants to enter into that, you have until the end of the month, each month. That's how it works. At the end of the last day of the end of the month is your day to enter. Got to be taken in that month. So if you're entering a May photo challenge, you need to take it in May. And then the winner gets to pick the following months. I think we skip a month theme. So like Matt's picking May, Gina, who won April, she'll pick June, that kind of way. And then you also get to be...
Because you're already submitting photos at this point.
You also get to be a judge on the month that you pick. Now, Gina already is a judge, so she'll be a judge again unless
it doesn't count twice, Gina, if you're listening.
Yeah, you don't get to vote twice. I want to thank Andy again for coming in on such short notice. I just asked him last night, and he was able to make it tonight. And Andy, you give such great reviews. Anytime you want to come on and give a review, you let me know, and I will have you on. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to come on every night, every time. But we thank you for coming. And
that's how you wrote me in, by the way.
Yeah. That's how I did rope you in.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you. We are back next week on a regular night Tuesday with a topic we've never covered before, Tim. Never covered before. What do you think that is?
I wouldn't even. How could we have not covered something? Now you're going to go make me look it up.
There's tons of things we have not covered yet, but we've never covered this topic before, and it's one that has, in one frame, has brought the most controversy to the Facebook group we've ever had.
Well, then I know what it is right offhand. Because the one we talked about the most was train tracks. The guy standing on the train tracks.
So we're not going to talk necessarily about standing on train tracks and taking photos, but it is with Gene. I can't remember his last name. Boker, I think that's how it is. He lives like 5 miles south of me. And he takes some amazing train photos. So we're going to talk about train photography, and we will touch on very quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because this will always go south when we start talking about it. So talk about when you're shooting trains and shooting around trains, safety related to that. And he will say he won't get on train tracks to shoot because, one, it's illegal, regardless of whether you think you're fast enough to dodge them. Like, I personally think I'm fast enough to dodge them. But it's regardless of whether you think you are or not, it's illegal in most cases that I know of to be on them. So especially if you're shooting a client, you never want to put a client in an illegal situation. So we'll spend a very little bit of time about that, and then we'll talk about what he does and show some of his amazing work. So that's next week. And then check the calendar for the weeks coming up.
I'm really going to enjoy that on trains. Didn't we have somebody else in the Facebook group that was Stephen
Riley, who is
Stephen Riley.
I don't, people get busy and move on with their life, but Stephen was like our very first fan who was making it to every show. He's out in our Facebook group. We love Stephen. He's busy with life and doesn't get to make it out as much anymore. But I need to make sure he gets to make it to next Tuesday because
he took a lot of train photos.
He loves train photography. Yes. All right, Andy, we went a little bit further than what I thought, but thank you again for coming out. We're going to go ahead and end the live show. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you. Good
Keep
night,
it raw.
everybody.
Thank you. See you.